This podcast is brought to you by Wendi Coalition's Farm Talk podcast. They have been serving the Hopi community since 2004 by working to reaffirm and preserve traditional Hopi farming. Go to nutwendicoalition.org to learn more. That's NATWANI coalition.org.
Native Community Capital recognizes the unique challenges that hinder access to capital in tribal communities, and we understand your concerns about using traditional banks and the dangers of using predatory lenders. Let us be your trusted partner on the path to homeownership or financing your business. Visit us at nativecap.org or call us at 855-628-2272 to learn about better options for home and business financing.
You are now listening to the Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. I'm your host, the 5-star, 5-diamond chef, J-Man, and with me is Captain Sweatpants, although we're both Captain Sweatpants today, Carl.
I told you sweatpants is the most comfortable thing around. I don't know why you don't want to be cool like me. I just don't understand that.
Well, another thing that you don't understand too is I said this more than once that both you and I have different definitions of what cool means.
Hey, if So thinks I'm cool, then I'm cool, okay?
Let's not go down that rabbit hole, but I'd like to thank everybody out there, all the listeners, for joining us again today for another episode of the Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. And we kind of got a special episode today, a little bit of kind of switching things up a little bit, trying to bring some topics to your ears that's, I guess, a little bit more relevant, something that's a little bit more useful than the normal BS and normal joking conversations that you and I have. And so we're going to talk about something that a lot of people, including myself, don't really seem to understand, and that's finances.
Finances. I mean, like everybody here everybody here on the Hopi Reservation doesn't understand finance. I mean, if there's a dollar sign involved, then it must be that you have to be rich in order to afford certain things like that.
You know, the funny thing is that I think a lot of us have this mentality that if I have $20 in my pocket, what can I find out there that costs $20?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that is that mentality where, you know, you have money, but then you spend the money and then you don't have no more money. And then you're wondering, how do I get more money?
And then you discover things like credit cards. It's like, oh, I can buy things on credit. I didn't know that. Okay. My max is what? $5,000. What can I find that costs $5,000?
Exactly. I mean, you own credit cards, right? You have credit cards.
I own credit cards.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I own debt. So, and it's weird because I never knew that you could refinance, or you could have like, there's all these different terms like refinancing, restructure, rehabilitation. I don't know if that's a true thing in the finance world, but anyway, it's like, I have money, but then I don't know how to keep my money. You get what I mean? You get what I mean?
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I think, you know, all those terms that you were throwing out there, and I think really only one of them was a real finance term. But then I have absolutely no concept of exactly what refinancing mean or finances, because then, you know, like, because I for as much as I like to brag about, you know, my master's degrees and my fancy college education, that I very am unknowledgeable when it comes to the financial aspect of our living here. And I think that, you know, I probably have as much knowledge as anybody else when it comes to finances, because then, you know, when you think about something like a car, right? Like you pay for a car bill.
Yeah.
It's this false idea that as me having a car and paying on it monthly that I own the car.
Yeah.
Which really isn't true, because technically the
bank owns
the car, and I'm paying the bank so that one day I might be able to own the car. And so, a lot of us are running out there. We got 3 different car notes, car bills, and we're all bragging, oh, I own 3 cars. But that's not, the true reality of it. It's that you're in debt to the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
For a vehicle that they allow you to use.
Here on the reservation, we as Native Americans don't have a sense of finance and how to deal with the big wig guys and how to deal with all of these different structures like that. And my point is that there are Hopis out here that own those G sheds. Remember the G sheds that are around here? Yeah, and I see that, it's like, how much? It's like $100 down, and you go home with a huge house. G shed. And you go home, and then you find out the bill is about $1,000 some odd dollars, and you're like, that's a month? And they're like, yeah. We charge you shipping fees, truck fees. I had to take a restroom fee when I was going over there.
Restroom
break fee. All of these fees and these little things like that in there. And
I had to buy an apple pie when I stopped, so we're going to charge you for that too.
And all of these little things add up, and not knowing that in the contract that we signed, and Hopis don't want to read no contract. Did you ever read your 32-page contract when you got your car?
When I bought my very first truck, all I heard was that your monthlies are going to be around $400. I knew that was something that I could handle. And so I signed 100 documents that they made me sign, completely omitting that my interest rate was 20% plus. So I essentially bought 2 trucks for the price of one. I actually bought 1 truck for the price of 2. Yeah. And so you're right. We don't pay attention.
You don't pay attention to the fine details. And they make, and these bahanas, they're so crafty, and they're like, don't read this one here. It's just a lot of mumbo jumbo here.
It'll put you to sleep.
Just sign your name here. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll just do that. And you're like, okay. And I picture this in the back of my head where they're like, they're like tapping their fingers, like, they're laughing, laughing away.
Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah, like Scrooge McDuck. And I picture that every time that I sign a contract.
Well, and that's the thing, is that as folks out here on the res, we never get a financial education.
No.
And, because we understand what it is to have money. We understand what it is to spend money. But I guess really the big part that we're missing is that long-term understanding of what you're getting yourself into when you want to buy something big.
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned with the G-Shed, a lot of the times in those situations is that the only thing that you're fixated on is what you have to pay in that moment on that day. It's like, oh, I only have to pay $200 and I get this shed.
Yeah.
And that's really all that a lot of us think about, is just the money that we have to pay up front. Because then, long term, I think a lot of our mentalities is that, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out if the monthlies are $500 or more. I'll figure it out a way to pay it. I'll maybe get a job and I'll start paying on it. But then when it actually comes to it, when you do have to pay your monthlies on these big purchases that you spend, that we're unable to do it. And so
it's weird in a way, because you're not paying for the actual item. You're paying for the interest first, and then you pay for the actual item. And that's what basically happened to us when we owned our truck. We're at like 27% interest rate, and we didn't know that. And it's like 20%. That's less than 30%. And thinking that that mindset of like, that's a steal, guys. So sign your name right away. We're gonna get 27%. It's less than 30%. I know 30% is more. So, and not knowing that 27% is like, it's so high, like
I said, you're paying for 2 vehicles, and you're really only getting one at the end of the day. And and I guess before we started blabbing off into space, that there is a reason why we're doing this episode.
Yeah,
that there
exactly.
is a purpose why we're talking about finances, and really, I think that as the episode goes forward, this is going to really tie in with small businesses.
Yeah.
Because, we've talked about this before in several of our episodes about Hopi small businesses. We've talked about economic development. We've talked about the lack thereof of jobs for folks out here in structured organizations such as schools, hospitals, etc. And so a lot of our people have gone out to start their own businesses. And, in our previous episode that we had with Jennifer Himmel, the owner of Arizona Big Sky Soaps, that we talked a lot about some of the different barriers. But one of the barriers that we didn't talk about in that episode with her was the financial part of starting a small business. And so we have some special guests. We have some special guests that are involved with small businesses, guests that understand the finances and, kind of the barbed wire, so to speak, about, the things that we're afraid of. But we definitely want to bring in another individual who has made this episode possible.
So I'd like to welcome to the studio here, Dave Castillo.
Hey, welcome. Thank you for welcoming me. It's good to be here. I've been looking forward to this. Love your show.
So Dave, we definitely like to thank you for the opportunity for making this episode possible. And so if you could just kind of introduce yourself to our listeners and kind of just give some background as to why we're here today talking about finances.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so my name is Dave Castillo and CEO for Native Community Capital. And we make loans for Native-owned businesses and also home loans on the reservation and off. And been doing this for about 12 years. We have an office in Laguna, Pueblo, and we've got an office down here in Arizona where I'm at. And the reason I asked the guys to help me out and kind of talking about this with the community and everyone who's listened to the show is exactly what you're talking about. There's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of anxiety. Sometimes I refer to it as the money demon. There's a lot of things we don't talk about, right? And money's one of them, and the thing is we've got a lot of Native entrepreneurs and to run a business, you need money, or at least to be able to run it, and grow it and do well and maybe employ more of your extended family or do interesting things. We just helped finance a commercial mixing machine for a woman who makes oven bread and sells it out of her home, and she caters for her tribe. And, she was telling, I don't even remember how many pounds of dough she mixes, but I remember she said, I thought, oh my God, that's a lot of dough. You do that by hand? And she said, yeah, that's why I need the machine, but it's $3,800. And so one of the things that she said is, but I don't think, I said, well, how's your credit? And she said, oh, it's really bad. It's really bad. And she said, well, let's take a look. And we did. And it turns out it wasn't that bad, but she'd never looked at it. Yeah. She just assumed that her credit was shot because she knew she had done some things that probably didn't make the most financial sense. But we got her with a credit counselor and they worked through it. We made her the loan and it worked out. But that I think it really comes down to what you guys are talking about is, you make some assumptions and maybe you don't ask the questions because you don't know, because you're afraid of what the answer is going to be. And so basically we put together some videos that we're going to be releasing soon, just to kind of help reduce some of that anxiety and answer some common questions and encourage people to pick up the phone and talk to folks that are out there like us and others who can help answer those questions and just have the conversation.
Great. My credit score is so low. They had to make me a special category where it's like, this is the Carl category. Where do you fall from 700 to 800? It's like, no, this is the Carl category here.
Wait, when you applied for that loan, they were probably asking real extensive questions like, where do you keep the extra key? For your home.
For your home.
No, they're probably high-fiving each other like, we're going to be able to charge this guy 27%.
Well, thank you, Dave, for being here. And, I guess it's kind of weird that you and I, Carl, haven't thought to have this conversation before because, it really is something that a lot of us out here experience with this whole financial aspect, I guess, of what it is that we try to do as Native people, whether that's trying to start our own business. And, there are just some things that we really need. We need vehicles, we need rides, we need places to live in. We need other types of things, especially with our culture, the different types of things that we do, that there are certain tools, I guess, that a lot of folks out here need. And sometimes, you don't have the cash on hand to buy anything right out. But then, this whole magical world of credit and loans, and, you start to think about the nice truck before you even think about how much it's going to cost you in the end. Because then, I remember one time that when I got out of high school, in college, I had a friend, he's a res guy like us. And I remember he had a really nice Camaro one time, real nice Camaro. It was brand new too. And we were asking him like, wow, this is new. This is yours. And he was like, yeah, this is mine. How much are you paying for it, monthly? And he was like $700. And right when he told me that, I knew immediately that he's probably not going to have this car for very long. And sure enough, the car was gone because he couldn't afford to pay for it anymore.
Well, the reason why we don't talk about these different types of things or this subject here is because we went to public school, and in public school, they never taught us the finance world. They just taught us home economics and not burn down the kitchen once in a while. So
I don't know, Carl, you were probably in a special class where they only taught certain things. So, maybe some people out there that had a public school education learned a little bit about finances.
We had to wear helmets sometimes. I don't know why we did. I don't know why we did that.
They were padded, huh?
They were padded. We had to, sit on a padded floor sometimes. I don't know,
Well, let's go to a quick commercial break and, we'll come back.
Yeah, go ahead. Nurturing Indigenous Intelligence is a grassroots organization based on the Hopi Reservation. They work to alleviate the hardships in the community through acts of giving, from distributing school supplies, volunteering at various places, and working to expand their services. Follow them on Instagram at Nurturing I Squared and on Facebook at NI Squared Team to find out more.
Coenvioma Law, PLLC is 100% Native-owned and operated, founded by Varen Coenvioma. Their practice areas include corporate law, business transactions, finance, economic development, gaming, casino development, online gaming, real estate, environmental permitting and approvals, telecommunications, government affairs, employment and labor relations, historic preservation and cultural resources, and energy. Coenvioma Law is committed to making positive and lasting change in our communities as they support nonprofit volunteering, community activism, and employing Indian preference in hiring and vendor relations. Terraform Development is a Navajo and Hopi-owned engineering, architectural, and project management firm located in northern Arizona. The company has full-time staff and comprises of Navajo and Hopi employees. Terraform services include civil engineering, residential design, drone mapping, and project management on projects for your need. Terraform is a Priority 1 Navajo certified business and Hopi business license certified. Contact Terraform Development at TERRA4ORM.com and follow them on Instagram at Terraform Development.
And we're back. And so now I think it's a great time to bring in our additional special guest. So I'd like to welcome to the podcast for the first time, Kristy Honie.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited to be here and a part of this financial podcast. I love finances.
Ugh.
I know you
You're
love
one
finances.
of those people. Those people.
She's one of those people where she'll be telling you better be counting the change in your cup holders in the car because it all adds up.
You probably have like spare, what are those coin, what are those little things that you put the coins in there?
The ones that you wear on your belt.
From Sonics, you probably have the Sonics coin purse in your car.
No, not at all.
And so, Kristy, can you quickly give your introduction to our listeners?
Sure.
And how your feet kind of swim into this financial aspect of life?
Sure. My name is Kristy Honie. I'm from Monkopi. I have 3 kids, Masunga. And I really actually started my own personal journey in finances back in January of 2017. Started working on my debt and, investing, saving for emergency fund. And just recently, in the last year or so, I joined a team of other financial professionals and wanting to help other individuals like myself, and even really just our Native communities, of learning about finances, educating them in finances, life insurance, retirement, emergency fund, debt management, credit, building your credit. So, however, recently I just kind of ventured off on my own. I want to kind of grow on my own and do it on my own time. So I am working with individuals here and there and trying to educate everybody on finances and how they can help build their wealth and, create their financial house, even starting with life insurance and, helping individuals not try to live paycheck to paycheck, because that's what a lot of us do. And just learning about debt and your credit. I've myself been in the depths of, I had to file for bankruptcy back in August of 2010. And today I got my credit up to about almost 786 right now. So, it's a tough road. It takes a lot of discipline, responsibility not to live above your means. And just like you were talking about, J-Man, with the whole vehicles, we're always trying to keep up with the Joneses with, I need to get that bigger vehicle. I need to get that expensive vehicle, that Camaro, that truck with the, lift. It's about, trying to, I guess, really to decide on what your personal financial goals are and working to that. Just a lot of discipline and knowing where you can save and even investing, learning about investing. And I think that's scary too, giving your money to a bigger company or source and not knowing if your money's going to grow or decrease. But it's, I guess, having also that patience in learning where your money is going and what investments there are, and having patience and always contributing on a monthly basis and just trying to save and live below your means, really.
Thank you for the introduction, Kristy. And, I think Carl is somebody that you don't absolutely have to worry about in terms of trying to keep up with the Joneses. So ladies, if you're out there, you're looking for a nice frugal man, I think Carl's the way to go. He was driving around a Subaru and, had issues with that. So he bought a new car.
Subaru.
And it turns out he bought a new Subaru.
Yeah.
Just a different color.
It's weird because I know I'm rich. I have money to throw around, and
I was going to say, thank you, Carl, for trusting in me to invest your money. And now we got this great, successful podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're welcome.
The whole setup in our studio is about $1,400. So, and my car is about $27,000. So I think I can pay it off next year. My credit is so low, I don't really care about that.
Your credit is so low that we have to dig a hole just to find it.
So, Carl, is that car a used car or a brand new car?
It's a used car. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Good step right there. Good job.
Yeah, I've owned several cars that were used. So,
and then also, too, I'd like to welcome back to the podcast is Wendi Lewis. And so this is Wendy's second time joining us here. And so, Wendi, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Hi.
And thank you for joining us again, Wendi. And I believe Dave and Kristy. And so we're just going to go on and have this five-way, I guess, in terms of conversating about financials and entrepreneurship. And Wendi, you are the owner of a business, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Will you please tell our listeners about your business?
I own a Hopi-inspired running apparel company. It's called Strong Ones. I design and even develop apparel and sell it on my online store. I sell it in person. Ultimately, the goal is there's bigger dreams. There's bigger dreams for it. But right now, currently, I'm just selling and helping in small ways in the community. I guess empowering, fundraising, donating, things like that. So that's correct.
Wendi, what influenced you to get your business started? What was the background history of your business?
Well, I have run for most of my life. It's been my life since I was I remember winning the 1 mile Lewis Dawanima race. That's my first running memory. I was probably like 6 or something. And I wasn't a fast runner in the beginning. It was just something that, my stepdad was a coach for cross country. And I think I kind of just tagged along or, got dragged along at times. And it just became a part of my life. And it was such a huge part of my life that, I believe that a lot of who I am today and what I do and how I think of things, a lot of it, I feel that running was a big part of it. So the things that I learned, the discipline, all of those things, they all played a big part in shaping me. And, even when I left and I stopped running after college, it's just always been something that I always try to find myself to be a part of. I coached at the high school for many years. I started running with friends a lot and we would talk and we'd be like, because this is what we do. And it's like, it would be cool to have something, when we go, because we would run out of state, we would just do different things. And it'd be cool to have something that reflected us, because there's a lot of why we run is, a part of, our Hopi and our Hopi history and our culture. And, when we had this conversation while running, I thought, that would be really cool. I do want to do something like that. And so it just slowly started from there. Actually using the Hohongvit was the original concept. And then I reversed it because I wanted to incorporate other tribes. And then I decided, okay, I just kind of want to, it's a lot of partnership, in terms of trying to incorporate other tribes into it. And I just wanted to focus back on Hopi. So I'm kind of turning it back around. But currently it's known as Strong Ones. And, we're here today.
Wow. And so running's a pretty big part of your life. I imagine that your kids are runners as well.
Yes. All of my kids run. Well, for the most part. My daughter ran in high school. She also ran at the same community college I ran in after she graduated high school. And then my daughter ran for part of her high school, junior high to elementary to part of her high school years. And then I have a couple young ones that I'm taking my time getting them into running, just because I know what kind of impact that have when you do the force. Only the strong survive when it comes to forcing your kids to, get out there and run and do these things. And, you got to be really strong to be able to carry that on, beyond high school and not get tired of it. And so I'm trying to be careful and trying to, just take my time with them so that they can carry it on.
And I imagine that you probably married a runner too as well.
Oh gosh.
So do you run, J-Man? Do you run currently?
You know what? I was just about to ask you that too, Carl. What are some of your fondest?
I never run.
Running
I
moments?
don't run. I can admit that I don't run. The last time I ran was when this was last year, and I'll tell this little story here. I went down to my bean field, and I was like, okay, I'm finished, chopping the weeds and everything, and I said I'll go for maybe a little jog around the field there.
And then your knees started.
And then my knee started cracking, and I'm like, the hell is wrong with me? I'm not even old. It was like things hurt when I ran like half a lap, and I got back to the car, I was like out of breath. I'm like, oh my God, is this so hard?
You told this one already, Carl.
Oh, did I tell this one already?
Yes, you did.
must be getting old.
But I think that's a representation about the longevity of our podcast, is that when you get to a point to where you're already rehashing old stories, but it doesn't look like it. But I used to run in high school, and I also ran collegiately. And so, those are my running stories. But, I think that this is a conversation that everybody can join in. And so, Wendi, if you can share with us what some of maybe the financial barriers were to starting your own business. And I know, Kristy, this is probably something that you can also chime in on as well with your experiences with larger organizations and the finances needed to fuel a larger organization. So Wendi, if you could go ahead and start with this question.
Well, I left my job in the summer of 2018 to focus completely on this running apparel company and building it. And I quickly got anxiety and started looking for a part-time job because I had no, income. I was a single mom for many, many years in the early 2000s, and I'm kind of an independent person. And, until, I met my now husband, and, it was different. It was a big decision for me to quit work and not have any sort of income and depend on him 100%. But I did get anxiety, so I did apply for a part-time job. A lot of the things that my money, you think you have all this money saved up, and, I'm like, okay, I have all this money saved up. I'm going to quit. I'm ready. And then, you're on your own with no constant income. I had to purchase inventory. I had to purchase my printing. I have to travel to sell. At that time, I didn't have a website yet. All of these different things, and my money was just flying away. And so I got that part-time job. I relied on my husband to pay for a lot of my things, and to pay for the travel so that I could, to do this and try to make it work. How I've always operated, to date is that, I create a product. I make my money off of it. I save, and then most of the time I reinvest, into bigger purchases, like, a machine or something that's going to help the process a little bit more. I finally bought a website. So since 2018, a lot of my income, if there was any profit, has just been reinvested into growing the company. I believe that in 2019 was the first year I actually did file for my taxes for 2019 as a sole proprietor. Strong Ones. I finally got a business checking account to keep my finances separate from my personal, and, did the whole tax filing thing that way. And now, it's still a part of it's still under my name. But it's a separate, because I have that separate account set up with the bank. It helps a lot in terms of my growth.
So Wendi, on a scale of 1 to 10, how successful is your business from when you started to now?
I'd like to say that it's maybe a 7 to probably like a 7. It's not quite where I want it to be. I do have got back into full-time work in the fall of 2019, and that has slowed it down. But it's good when I work on it. I love it. It makes me happy. And, I hope to someday be able to jump off the bridge again, give it another shot and go at it. Because like I said, I have all these goals for what I want it to do. I'm only doing a really small portion in terms of my give back to my community. And the whole idea is to, empower and employ our Hopi community on Hopi, build this on Hopi. And, that's the dream. And hopefully I go after it again, take another big leap again soon.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Wendi. And your husband, he sounds like a real 5-star guy.
I know. I'm sitting right next to you, so.
And I think that the picture that you drew for us, I think is a really great insight for a small business, because I think that for a lot of us out here, when you think about starting a small business, we think, things like building a lemonade stand to where, all you have to do is run to the grocery store, buy lemons, sugar, and water, and then you're up for business. But then, to really build a business, to really brand your business, that there's so much more money that goes into it. You mentioned a website. And then, another thing on our side that we spend a lot of money on for the podcast is marketing, or bringing in individuals that have other types of skill sets that might not be within your immediate household to try to expand. And, Carl and I definitely know about that. We always joke around and we say that we're the we don't get paid around here, and everybody else around here gets paid a lot more money than we do.
Yeah.
And, and Kristy, this is probably something that you could also give some insight on, because then, I think that for a lot of us, when you think about the larger businesses, when you think about the Walmarts, the Targets, that, you go in there and you think that they're making tons of money, which they probably are, but not really understanding what their overhead is, meaning, the money that they're paying employees, money that they're paying for people to drop in their shipments and et cetera. And so, Kristy, can you share, I guess at least your understandings of what it costs to run a large thing like that, or even with what your experiences are?
Well, right now with my full-time job, I do help manage at least between three to about a little over 3 million, and definitely
dollars.
$3 million.
US dollars.
US dollars.
This is not Korean money here.
I was about to say, I'm sorry. I had to clarify that because in my household, we are on this Squid Game trip. And it's
a 40 million
with the show.
Yeah. 40 billion, what was it? Yen or whatever, or un, or I don't know what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter watches that.
I binge watched that whole entire show. But anyway, back to you.
But the 3 million, it sounds like a lot of money, but when you first start, the budget goes to salaries, benefits, fringe benefits, that takes a majority of the cost. And then, allocating everything else to your expenses, depending on what your business is, what kids' education, products that you're buying, services that you're maybe outsourcing to other companies. It does take a big portion, and it's learning how to separate and allocate budget that the rest of the money that is not going to your employees. So it is a lot of work. And then, just trying to even the portion of recruitment, retention of those employees to make sure that they want to stay with your company. It's a lot of work to try to manage all that money and decide on what's the priority to, number 10 to number 1, or number 1 to number 10. You have to decide on what to allocate to.
That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I had no idea what you were talking about, but good for you.
Well, if everybody gets paid the minimum wage, then shouldn't we be coming out on top?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. And then being on the reservation, sometimes we don't have to follow that state minimum wage.
No.
We can be lower or higher if we wanted to. So.
Yeah, I know that Hotvela store, they pay their employees, I think it was like $5 to $7 an hour.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
really?
And that's living on the reservation.
I absolutely had no idea that that's the case. So we're gonna have to meet again and talk about our salary, our social media, and our. Graphic design salaries. So,
our social media and our graphic design person. I'm just kidding,
Kelly and Stacey.
If you're listening to this, you might be getting a smaller check this month. So,
and you can thank Kristy for that.
Yeah, she refinanced my entire mind.
And I guess, talking about moving on and kind of talking about, kind of the scary things about finances. And Wendi, what were some real, I guess, intimidating situations that you were undertaking when you were developing your business as it related to the finances, like, things of considering taking out business loans or any other types of things like that?
The biggest one, the first one, I guess, was, whether or not I felt I had the flow of the cash flow to maintain a business checking account. So that took me a while to get that, to consider to actually invest in or take the time to go and learn and get a separate checking account. And so that was one of the most, that took me a while in 2019 to kind of just like, okay, I think I do need to start keeping things separate. And business loans are always, there. But I've always been scared of business loans, like back in my paycheck to paycheck days when I, was working at the high school. And I don't know if you guys remember the payday loans things. Remember those?
Yes.
Yeah. And that was like, the thing that kept me going. And it was then, like that you learn later about the finance rates and that, crazy amounts that you were being charged to get a couple $100s from the payday loans. And I just never, I always told myself, let's try to do this without a loan. And so I was able to kind of stay afloat with that. And then credit cards, I've never owned a credit card because my mom always told me not to. And she would always like, don't you dare, don't ever, don't do it. And so I never owned a credit card to this day. And I'm learning now that, I probably can, so I have what they call no credit because they never seen me pay off a credit card. It's crazy. Like it almost benefits you as much as having bad credit to not have any credit. I get denied for a lot of things. And so now I'm almost 40 and I'm finally, going to take the leap and say, okay, I'll do a credit card now because like that, as I want my business to grow, I want to be able to show that I do have credit or, I'm able to pay these things off, pay certain things off and invest in bigger things for my company.
Wow. Sol and Gua had credit cards and they finally paid, Sol finally paid off her Woolworths credit card, and Woolworths have not been around since the 1940s. So, that just kind of goes to show you that credit can kind of follow you anywhere.
I just wanted to comment on that because, I think a lot of the businesses that we work with, they start from kind of what Wendi was talking about, just that passion. It was like, I've always been about running, I love running. I'm going to make that part of, it already is who I am. Maybe I could kind of make a business out of this. So I want to make sure it's, we kind of talk about some of the successes that we see in Indian country, but that it's a journey, right? We had a guy who, like Wendi, was just printing, shirts and selling them out of his trunk of his car, and he wanted to do more, but he says this, he's got a little blog post that he put up and he said, I was a really good artist, but I didn't know I wasn't a good business person. And it seemed like those were two sides of what I needed to be to be able to grow the business. And when he says this one thing that kind of is really moving too, he says, I felt like, trying to do work in a non-Indian community, I really felt like they felt like I shouldn't even exist. And that was kind of a heavy thing, right? It's kind of like, I want to be successful. I want my art to grow. I want to get it out there. And he really had that feeling, but he just, he didn't have the skills. We had another guy who does a mobile auto repair on the reservation. And he came to us and he said, yeah, the business is really good. People really like my service. I charge fair prices. A lot of people can't make it into town to get their cars repaired, or they can't even get them to start up to get repaired. So I go to them and we said, great, let's take a look at kind of how you've been managing your finances. And I said, do you have financial statements? Pretty basic question that any lender is going to ask. Let's see how your business has been doing from the numbers side of it. And he said, well, I don't know what that is, but I keep all my receipts for everything I buy in this shoebox here, and it's all organized really good. And I was sitting there with another lender and we're like, brother, we can't help you. We're not going to go through your shoebox of receipts. Right. there is that kind of difference from kind of like that first guy was talking about, going from being an artist, doing what you do, doing what you know, doing what you love, to moving to the other side, in terms of kind of doing the boring stuff, the accounting stuff, the finance stuff. And so he said, but don't worry, we got some grant money that we can pay an accountant to sit with you, to work through, get those receipts. Turned out, actually, we had another person who literally came in with a garbage bag full of receipts and gave it to this accountant that we work with and said, here, get me my financial statements. And the accountant was like, I'm not touching that. And she said, look, listen, let's get into your accounts. So they got on the computer, they got into the accounts, her credit card account, her business credit card, her banking account. They said, look, with this program, which I think they're using QuickBooks or something like that, they said, all we got to do is put this information, and then the bank and the credit card company just dump all that information into the software. That's how we create your financial statements. Now, that lady who brought in that garbage full bag of receipts, no dummy. I mean, she's a very smart lady, but she didn't know anything about the accounting side of the business. And she thought, well, I'll just save all my receipts in this garbage bag and I'll sort through them later. And the accountant was like, no, that's not how we do it. Look, press of a button. Here it is. Now let's look at the numbers. So I think it's a real success story, because that first guy I talked about, he's very successful. People love him. People love his designs. He gets invited to like Paris Fashion Week. He's got, his merchandise at the National Museum of the American Indian, all this stuff. But he still was kind of not getting with the program in terms of paying attention to the numbers. Luckily, his brother, who's kind of an engineer, is a partner in the business. And he kind of, had a talk with his little brother and said, hey, let's get serious here. When your accountant tells you put a little bit of money aside to pay for your payroll taxes or whatever, we need to do that. And so he came back from this big trip. He told us about it. He said, man, I got all these events that I'm going to hit. I got a new design, this, that, and other. He's really excited about it. So he comes back and he comes to drop off a payment for the loan that we made him. And me and my partner were sitting here saying, hey, we want to hear about it. Tell us about how the trip went. And he said, man, there were some epic parties, man. And I was just, no, wait, what? We don't want to hear about that. Tell us about how the sales went. Did the product fly off the shelf like he thought? So again, he still kind of was just kind of like trying to live that life, as a young person, young artist environment and community. And he still hadn't quite made it over to that next side of kind of like, okay, I'm an artist and I'm part of that community, but I'm also a business person and I want to be able to pay my employees. I want to be able to have a storefront at some point. I want to be able to kind of do these collaborations with people, on the East Coast, whatever. And so, but I say it's a success story because at every step he was kind of like, you could see the light turning on, and it wasn't so much a burden. It wasn't so much kind of like, I got to do this. Because when it turns into that, then it kills the business. I knew another guy who owned a restaurant, and, he said it was the most miserable 2 years of my life. I was there 24 hours. We could never kind of make the rent. We were always kind of on the verge of, going bankrupt, and we finally just shut it down, And so you took something that he was really passionate about, which was, traditional food cooking, and it just turned into a burden because he wasn't paying attention to the business side of it. And if he would have just had some help, if he would have just had someone to say, hey, no, you don't got to put all your receipts in a trash bag. Look, just press this button. Let me help you, grow this business. And so that's why I think the people in our room today, that's why they're so valuable. We can do this in a better way instead of going and getting one of those sheds and getting, charged 60% interest, and paying, like you said, you can buy two of those things for the price of one for what you're paying. Maybe you work with a native entrepreneur or a native financial advisor or another native business owner, and they say, no, there's a better way. And we can help each other out. I mean, we come together all the time for all kinds of things. How come we're not coming together around helping each other for supporting our small businesses? Why is it such a secret to kind of, talk about these money issues or talk about the trouble that we have with it? I mean, Carl, you're a real kind of put yourself out there. It's like, I took that run around the bean field and my legs were cracking. Well, we could say the same thing. I tried to run at this business and man, I lost my shirt. I don't know what I did wrong, but I think thinking about it, it's because I had the wrong whatever design. I had the wrong distribution strategy. I didn't do any marketing. My knees were cracking, but then I figured out, man, if I just go back out this again, maybe I'll start a little slower and maybe kind of get someone to help, like the 5-star J-Man here. Maybe he knows something about running.
No, the reason why my knees were cracking, because I had the wrong shoes on. That's why.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Dave. And Carl, I didn't want to ask you, so does Soul still make you save your receipts?
What receipts? I don't even print out receipts anymore.
My mom constantly, save your receipts, save your receipts. Like, why, Mom? Like Dave's point, it lives online now.
Yeah, it lives online now. So,
but there was one more thing too that I wanted to get into before we run out of time. But it's I think a lot of it, like everybody is saying everybody's contributions to the conversation, that a lot of it, I guess, is really just paying attention, learning the best business practices. And like Kristy said, just being disciplined. Because, sometimes you're there, if you have a credit card and you know that you owe on your credit card, you pay all your bills and you just so happen to have $500 left over, that, it's really hard for us to, okay, I'm going to put $250 into the credit card, even though I already paid my monthly for that. But instead we go out and what can I buy for $500?
So Kristy, what sort of advice do you have for our listeners that are listening to this financial episode?
And on top of that, Kristy, I guess really it would intertwine with Carl's question. With your experiences working with our people, what are some of the biggest questions that people ask, and what are we the most afraid of when it comes to finances?
Just like Dave said earlier, the hardest part is just starting the conversation, wanting to talk about finances, wanting to talk about money. And lately, my experience has been, oh, I'm okay. We're okay. We don't need any help. We're okay. Everybody's okay. But I think it's important that we at least take a look at it. How much debt do we have? What's our income coming in? What's our expenses? What are our monthly expenses? I mean, we could be spending $500 a month on eating out or buying clothes, traveling. Yeah, but, where can we cut some of these items? And if we can find where we can, save some money, invest that money. Yes, it's good to put money in a bank, but if you look at the interest rate, in there, it's like 0.01%, as opposed to putting it in maybe a 401k, Roth IRA, or even just a regular investment account. Your money's going to grow with compound interest in there. And it's learning about these types of things on how you can make your money grow, or, your money's growing and you don't have to do anything. So really it's just wanting to start that conversation of looking at your finances, looking at your income, your expenses, just wanting to say, okay, where am I really at? Let's take a look at the big picture, and where do you want to go? What are your goals? I know a lot of us depend on Social Security. I'm going to retire and I'll have Social Security. But, for us, Social Security might not even be there. And then what are we going to do? Well, we're going to have to probably work until we're 100 years old. And who wants to do that? So
goals.
Really, it's just starting that conversation of wanting to take that look at your finances and, getting, asking the right person, asking the right questions. But again, like I said, just looking at that big picture and what are your personal financial goals?
Thank you. Yeah.
The reason why we don't like to talk about finances, it's the same thing with Native men's health.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about it because we know it's all effed up.
Yeah.
We don't want to go to the hospital because we know there's something wrong with us.
There's something wrong with us.
And we're afraid for them to tell us what it is.
If there's something sticking out or that we're not used to having or seeing, then we'll go to the hospital. So otherwise we'll live with it. So Wendi, do you have any advice for upcoming artists or small businesses starters? Any type of advice?
I guess my advice is, if you want to grow, you are going to have to eventually get comfortable with these bahana ways of managing your business, where I was helping a lot of people when the Corona Relief Fund applications came out, and they were for the businesses on Hopi. And so many of them hit this wall of rejection and frustration, anger, because they needed a DUNS number. If they didn't have a DUNS number, then there was all these ways. Okay, if you don't have a DUNS number, do you at least file your taxes? No. Like, I want to say 98% of the people that came to me, 99% of the people that came to me that wanted to apply for this funding did not file their business income as under taxes. We just all, pocket the money, reinvest it, to just, get us through the years. And that's just how we operate. And unfortunately, these grant opportunities, like Dave said, you do have to show, your business operation through your financial statements, through your bank statements. And that's only, and I'm not saying that that's, the wrong way to approach it, how a majority of us do, because I did it, but when you understand about grants, when you understand about this federal funding that was available, it does benefit you to have those things in place. And yeah, just it helps you when you file your taxes. If you claim all of that income during tax time, you can go back and check your business account to make sure that your numbers are correct in case you get audited. And then to one of the other things that I wanted to bring up was that, a lot of the time our people at home on Hopi, they're not comfortable with loans, or they feel like, okay, these banks are going to say no. They're going to say no to me. I want to get a loan, but they're going to say no to me. I hope that people become more familiar with the Hopi Credit Association, which is our only Hopi CDFI, community development financial institution, and they provide business loans. And a CDFI creates their programs based on the people that they serve. And so one of the unique things about Hopi Credit Association is just like what Dave does. They can work with you. They can figure out ways to help you get that loan. If you the finance rates they're not super high, what a bank would probably give you, with if you don't have that financial statement history. That's the beauty of the Hopi Credit Association, is they can, as long as you have some sort of documentation, there's a good possibility that they'll work with you, figure out what assets you have that will help you get a loan, all the way down to a computer you own. Some people even, they're Hopi UC, like, they're confident that they can pay that back, pay that loan back. They do, they finance based because the people on Hopi understand the value of those things. So yeah, those are my little pieces of advice.
Thank you for that.
So I guess the recommendation then would be for us to start opening those IRS letters that have been coming in. We kind of just threw to the side.
Yeah, I kind of just put them underneath my car seat and just
taxes.
Yeah,
we don't have to pay taxes on this stuff.
And Dave, any last words from you, from your company, from your end? Any advice that you like to give out to our listeners as well?
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. I want to also first recognize Hopi Credit Association. They've been at it for a really long time. They're one of the first and original, Native run, Native led financial institutions serving Native people. And now there's about 70 of us across the country. So I want to do a little shout out to some other groups that are kind of getting started in this space. Native Women Lead. You got to check them out. They're going to be launching a fund here not too long, specifically for Native women entrepreneurs. And I think they're going to have a forgiveness provision in there too for a portion of the loan once you pay off. They really don't like the 5 C's of credit. They say, we don't want to see your financial statements. We're going to work on the 5 R's. And I don't remember what they all stand for, but it's like, respect, reciprocity. It's all about, really community as opposed to just the bottom line. So Native women leaders out there. There's another group called Change Labs. They're helping out in the Tuba City and Munkapi area. And, the thing about them and this other group called the Native Entrepreneur in Residence Program is there's so much information out there. Everyone's got a smartphone. You could learn this stuff on your own. It strikes me that so many people go online for all kinds of reasons, right? You're looking stuff up, you're following a video series, or you're looking at some naughty stuff, right? People spending a lot of time like online. If you're running a business, if you want a business, there's a lot you can learn online from a lot of different sources, from Native people too. Like I said, from Native Women Lead, Change Labs, Native Entrepreneur in Residence Program. There's just so many resources out there. I just really encourage folks to go out there, either get online or pick up the phone and talk to someone, because it's not just us. There's a lot of new resources out there, especially for Native people who want to kind of, the original entrepreneurs, in terms of kind of providing products or services in a way that isn't really just about how much money I can make, but how can I help the community? How can I put something out there that represents who we are and do it in a way that helps, beautify the world and really help other people. So I think if we want to grow, if we want to do more, there's ways we can go about it, and we don't have to do it, like you say, the Pahana way, right? There are other ways we can do this. And I think the last thing I'll say is, I don't think we should expect other people to do it for us. We can do this on our own. We maybe need some help once in a while. I'll mention, Wells Fargo right now. I know they kind of had a bad rap because of their support of DAPL, but they fired their CEO. They got a new one, and supposedly pretty soon here, they're going to launch this big Native initiative. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't think we should rely on it, but once in a while, the Pahana world is going to pay attention to Natives, and, we can use those resources when they come, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do these things for our own anyway. And I, again, really hats off to Hopi Credit Association, because that's kind of the approach they took. They said, we can rely on those banks off the reservation, or we could try to do something for ourselves. And I think that's a good lesson for all of us, especially like Wendi said, these small businesses are trying to make a go of it. You can reach out to another business owner, another Native business owner. It's nice to see tribes also kind of cooperating with each other, and buying Native. So I'm really hopeful for this. Check out our video series that we're going to be dropping here on our website, on our YouTube channel. Learn a little bit more, pick up the phone. The folks that are in the room here, they're right there on the reservation. You check in with them too. Or like a lot of times what happens is like, hey, they know my in-laws. I don't necessarily want them to know my business. Well, that's okay. There's folks throughout Indian country who you can talk to that will, talk to you as a relative and someone who wants to see you succeed. And so much going on. It's really encouraging. We just opened up, or some Native women just opened up a Native art gallery here in the Phoenix metro called Cahokia. So these things are happening over here in Scottsdale, Old Town. We've got the first Native-owned, shop, and it's usually just been non-Natives out there. Old Town, Albuquerque, we've got a Native-owned gallery there as well. And then you've got, like these young ladies who are starting up their soap and other beauty products. You're seeing more and more of it. So I think now's the time. Really, there's a lot of people taking that risk, taking that jump, like Wendi said, and folks like us, like Native Community Capital and our other allies, like I said, are out there to lend a hand. So be encouraged. Let's talk about this stuff, and yeah, let's make something happen for ourselves.
Thank you so much for that, for the information that all of you guys have given us today, because I had no idea that finance was an interesting topic. I basically avoided it because it was never taught to us in high school or taught to us in grade school.
In your special class.
And in my special classroom. And even in college, I never learned about that because I went to a drawing school and that was the easiest thing to do.
And in college, they encourage you to spend. And so rather than save. So.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you all for joining us today. We congratulate you on your successes, on your businesses, and giving us this financial advice.
Carl congratulated everybody. Everybody drink.
Is that part of the drinking game that you have on me?
Yeah, the new drinking game for
every time I say congratulations
for the consecutive listeners out there. Anytime Carl says any of his usual sayings, you got to drink something. Drink water.
This one could be a good one. J-Man is a bonehead, so to that.
You've never said that.
It's gonna happen. So, but anyway, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, our special guests. We hope that we can bring them back into the studio for something different. And
I think we could talk a lot more about.
Part two. Yeah, exactly. And an hour is not enough to talk about finances. But thank you anyway. If you had gotten this far into the podcast, I congratulate you.
Everybody drink.
I congratulate you guys and everything. So if you guys want to donate something, if you want to become our 30-pack sponsor, go to anchor.fm/CJ Podcast85 to become our monthly sponsor. It's only 99 cents or $4.99, I believe it's something like that. Or if you want to donate $1 or more, just go to buymeacoffee.com/CJ Podcast to donate $1 or more.
And if you're not following us on our socials, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Carl and J-Man. And if you'd like to send us an email for sponsorship information, you can email us at cjpodcast85@gmail.com. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to give us a 5-star review, because you are not 5 stars unless Apple Podcasts says your podcast is 5 stars.
All right. Well, thank you again for listening to Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. My name is Carl, and this is my best friend, J-Man.
So long. Quack, quack.